Laraaji, welcome.
Hey, Joe.
Here we are,
Yes, Texas,
Texas.
Austin.
Yes. Is this what you expected Texas to be?
Yes, I'm expecting a little bit more centigrades, but here's the sun, here's the warm people, here's the ground.
Feels good to be here.
Does.
Yeah.
Here's a good place.
Thanks for coming down. So I just started this podcast. A lot of this is about creativity, artistry, craft, universe, flow.
Join the podcast party. Yes.
Yeah.
Share the information.
Exactly. So last night we made music with plants, and we kind of interweaved a lot of beauty, and it was very touching.
Yes, tonal improvisation, honoring the frequency of plants through sound.
And one of the things that got me into making plant music is this idea of seeing that I was always influenced by nature to create music. And I felt in a certain way nature was expressing itself through me, like the creative force of the universe was coming out in me. And I see that big time in you, like the way that you channel and you do that very live, and you do that through but through music, and then also through kind of toning and kind of light language.
Yes, there's not a whole lot of thinking that goes into it, but you're probably right. So nature is an interesting word. So when the nature of space, the nature of timelessness, the nature of the moment, the nature of now, that in contemplation or in meditation or deep witnessing, I'm drawn out of this sense of local time and local body, and sensing myself as a presence, as a field of unlimited presence. And this is like a lead sheet. So I'm in it, and it generates my ideas or my inspiration for spontaneous music. So I'm reading the now, and the idea is in reading the now, I'm celebrating because there's so much freedom, so much non-anxiety, and so much joy. So the now is a very potent place to, it's good medicine.
Of
Medicine.
course.
And so the nature of the now for me, if I had to put it into words, it's always here, always accessible, and it's doesn't put any rules on me. I mean, if I'm in the now and express openly and share my sounds, the sounds tend to be what you call light language. And light also can be interchanged with the term lightness. Lightness. To be in the now, to me, extended present time, non-linear. It's void of third-dimensional claustrophobia and third-dimensional debris. So in that aspect, it's light in that it's not carrying heaviness. So it's the lightness of present time. The nature of now is lightness. And in musical expression, I enjoy the idea of space or sparse notes to sculpt or point to the lightness and the emptiness and the non-congestion of nowness. And this was an experiment until people like you commented that they were getting it. They were getting lightness, they were getting expansiveness, they were getting freed up from their dense identity so that they could experience a lighter sense of connection with the cosmos.
What started you on that journey of exploring this lightness?
Consciously, I could say being in the Baptist church and having my mother insist that we go to church, and Christianity, baptism, being baptized, being exposed to the person called Jesus the Christ, at an early age without fully understanding it all, but knowing that that was something awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, hey, I want to do that. Wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
And so, not knowing how I was going to do it, because I was getting mixed messages that only Jesus could do it, but yet Jesus was saying, you can do it too. And so I did my further research in later years. Well, as a result of following the image that I have of Jesus in my imagination, praying to Jesus was good psychotherapy. And it kept the doors open for me to invite in metaphysics in later life,
Mm.
because metaphysics seems, and Eastern philosophy seems to point in the direction of the mystery that Jesus seemed to represent. You know, if you want to do it, then here are some ways that you can do it. And what I found out is that the way to do it is to switch your idea of your potentiality. You know, there's more to you than human incarnation and human muscles, that with the mind and the imagination, even Einstein supported this, you can create, I call it, you can intuit or you can create your present moment according to the vibration of your mind. And the thoughts you think help to establish the vibration of that mind. So when I began exploring mind science and meditation, I found out I was directly altering the frequency of my mental state. And what followed was that I changed the aperture or the lens that through which I was perceiving life. And the idea of the power, prosperity, and perfection and eternity became more accessible to my sense of what is real. That through meditation, long hours of meditation, I was able to access the place beyond the titles. You know, in my early forms of meditation, I would sit in an easy chair, do deep breathing, and then mentally take off all titles and names and classifications. And what was left is this lightness of just I am without any titles, without any bone structure, without any ethnic identity. Super lightness. And I could stay in that meditative place for hours because there was no anxiety, no fear. It was just lightness and a very yummy lightness, you know. And I got to thinking, wow, this is better than chunking down $1,200 to fly off to India and try to find a guru. That right here inside the moment, if your devotion and my devotion allows it, I can access this lightness. And in this lightness, I feel less separate from everything. I feel that I don't need to rush off to a future or rush off to change the past. And I find that my relationship with people it shifts too, big time. That although I see people in bodies, bone structures, noses, and eyes colors, I'm getting to know that we are all a field, a common field, and starting to look at people from inside, look out through people's eyes, and feel them more cosmically intimately, so that there isn't a sense of I'll lose you if you go far away in terms of miles. I feel that we are interpenetrating one another in the perfect present time. And all of this understanding came to me through reading and through the practice of silent meditation. So much comes through in meditation, so called nonverbal information. And that's what I feel I was looking for when I was younger. I was looking for answers, but I thought they would come in terms of words. But I'm discovering that there's transverbal, or there is data that doesn't register in the linear conditioned mind. And whether you call it spirit or the way or Allah or God, and whatever you call it, if you're feeling it while you're calling it, then that's the right language for you.
Do you remember, can you give an example of experiencing that feeling, or do you remember like the first time you had that feeling?
What feeling? What feeling are we talking
Or
about?
the experience of knowing without the words, or the experience of receiving the information without it
Ye-
being words.
yes. I think consciously, because unconsciously I was receiving guidance into following it. I think that's one thing that
Mm-hmm.
prayer does. Praying, it just opens me up to trusting the invisible,
Mm.
the impersonal. And so in my early music improvisation, I feel I was following guidance without saying that I'm following guidance. It just jump on the piano and spontaneous music would happen. But after exploring meditation, mind science, and yoga, I learned that by cultivating an inner stillness, a deeper inner stillness, I can receive guidance from a higher source. And when I say higher, I mean more present.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the higher is. The higher is in the more present. And when we're not digging the higher, it's because our focus is somewhere removed from the present and we're into linear time space.
Mm.
But times when I learned how to be in perfect present time, one moment was during the 5 hours of meditation in the early 70s, mid 70s. One night before settling the meditation, I had attracted this sound. At first I called it a sound hearing experience, but later on I realized it wasn't done through these ears. I was aware inside an ocean of musical sound current, and the sound simultaneously was triggering cosmic memory of how it is that I am eternal, how it is that I am a field in which all things are one. And so I didn't make the connection at that time, but one of the sayings from the Bible, Jesus, was, "I and my Father are one." And I thought that was a hip statement. And it was during meditation I began to unravel my understanding behind those mystical sayings. So this
Mm-hmm.
sound current just like activated, or either was simultaneous with the activation of a knowingness, how it is that everything is one now, and that now is eternal. This is where eternity is. I used to think you had to wait to the end of time to know what eternity was. So that kind of knowingness is activated in the moment of deep meditative awareness. But I must say that particular moment, I had some help. I was probably months into experimenting with deep meditation, relaxing the identity with the body through the thoughts, deep breathing, and also I found that guidance guided me to the mindful offering of cannabis
Mm.
to the meditation experience. And the first time I felt guided, I questioned it because, of course, it was sort of underground and taboo.
Mm-hmm.
Until one evening I was watching a television show, and the show was sort of a live theater piece based in the East Village, New York, and it was about these detectives going underground to investigate beatnik community.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sergeants was instructing another police officer how to fake smoking a joint. And I saw it, and this guidance is, you got to check that out. Just like that. I said, check what out? Check that out. So it wasn't until years later in college that I was offered an opportunity to explore cannabis. And college mates offered me a few tokes, and I felt nothing. And the college mates were sitting in the room laughing at me, saying, "You're high and don't know it." And still, I hadn't gotten it. So years later, fast forward, I was given another opportunity. Okay, I'm going to do 10 sessions of marijuana, and if I get nothing from it, I'm just going to chalk up that guidance. So after about 4 or 5 experiments with cannabis laying in my room in Harlem. Just one day I was laying in my bed in the afternoon, staring out across the courtyard at the windowsill across from me, which had, I think, Tropicana orange juice carton and another with maybe a milk carton standing next to each other. And I remember after ingesting cannabis, I'm staring at these cartons, saying to myself, I wonder how many times I'm going to have to really do this to find a meaning. And then I noticed the 2 cartons were doing, one was a penguin, and there were 2 penguins, and they were doing a soft shoe dance on the ceiling, on the windowsill. And I'm saying, okay, I'm thinking. So getting high was about learning how to focus at the frequency where it's going on. Because I was too busy focusing in a familiar terrain. And so cannabis and psychedelics, I believe, show us another terrain within our consciousness and imagination that can be explored. So there I am listening to this music this one night inside my head. And it's calling me to, be aware that my heart was cracking open for the universe. It made me how much in love I am with this universe. And I don't know if I cried, but it was like one of those real, excruciatingly beautiful experience of family reunion. Maybe you can imagine seeing your grandmother, great-grandfather all at a family reunion and seeing faces that you vaguely remember and that feeling. This was like the whole universe is in reunion right here and right now. And as I, over the years, tried to relate that experience, I became aware of different aspects of that experience, that I was not only experiencing the music, but I was experiencing, we call it transcendental consciousness, that's transcended the body, and that I was the field. I was being aware of another dimension other than third dimension. It might be called the fifth dimension. It might be called the cosmic field or the void. So that experience was groundbreaking for me, because a few days after that I went to Lincoln Center Library, Music Library, to start research to find anything that pointed to that musical hearing experience. And there was. Several religious traditions on the planet honor that sound, including Christianity, but it was kind of covered over. In the beginning was the Word. The Word is that sound. And the more I talk about that experience, the more I have to remember that it never happened.
Tell me about what you mean by that.
The teaching is that there's no past for it to have happened, and that God did not create the universe, because God doesn't operate in past tense. So it's all going on now. And because of the way we are linked into this form of creation, it appears, and we use the language of linear time-space, but stepping out of it, going back across the veil into 0 point, we see that there's the I am within which all of this is taking place and unfolding. And that in absolute present time, linear time is, you could call it hallucination or illusion, but it's a story within an imaginary realm. But if we're in that realm, it seems real. But beyond that realm, there's just continuous now. And when that music, that experience that didn't happen, so it reminds me when I try to talk about it, we didn't happen.
Yeah.
We're happening now.
It's a story.
It's a story.
Yeah.
And it's an encouragement to clear out my nowness so that I can have this experience more expansively, that the now is where it's going on. And if I don't know it and I don't see it, it means I've got stuff in my nowness that's obstructing my direct experience of a higher frequency.
Yeah, I feel that. I love the way you kind of explain higher frequency too, because I think sometimes I hear people talk about high frequency, low frequency, like high vibe, low vibe, or things like that. And I tend to think of it almost like bit rate,
Like what?
like bit rate, like how or sample rate,
Oh
like
yes.
how many samples per second
Mm-hmm.
you're running. So the higher the sample rate, the more you're connected to the present moment. Whereas the lower the sample rate, like the bigger there are gaps between
Yes.
moments.
And those gaps, we don't see. I mean, like we look a certain way, or we use our faculties a certain way. Like I said, there's big gaps. We overstep the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
We see linear activity, and unless we're mindful or been trained or thoughtful, we exclude our presence. That
Mm-hmm.
this presence, the witness,
Mm-hmm.
and getting in touch with ourselves as a silent witness, I find is a way of inhabiting present time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. I had an experience where yeah, I did a plant medicine journey, and yeah, I was so in that witness state that it was interesting. At one point I had to get up and go use the restroom, and I was out on a farm in Central
Oh,
America, and the in the bathroom they had a fluorescent light. And because I was in the witness mind and I felt like I was so in the present, and that sample rate was so high, the the kind of light flashing of a bulb that you would detect as just constant light in normal life, you might feel a little bit, definitely feel it. It was like a strobe light.
you could
It was
see
just
it,
like a
notice it. Yeah.
like, and I was like, I see. Okay, you can run this hardware at different rates.
Yes, indeed. And one thing I always felt in talking about this is that I never know how much the seemingly other person already knows.
Hmm.
The whole world may be enlightened to the max, waiting for me to catch up.
I feel like I feel like the whole world is enlightened, waiting to be invited to witness its own enlightenment.
Hmm. The thing I have about that is there's two things. One of two things, or both things, are happening right now. Either there is this happening all by itself, or I'm creating it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm creating it moment to moment, then the only way to change anything is to change the whole creation, or let the whole creation shift in a way that it includes my prosperity or includes my health. Or I can go out into this and put band-aids on what seems to be a boo-boo, or go help a friend correct their behavior if I think they're acting out of place. Either I go around and manipulate this, what seems to be the physical world, or I stay in the witness mode, and if I just tune in to perfection, completion, wholeness, then I'll won't be so caught up in trying to fix things.
Mm-hmm.
And you fix a hole in that dike and another hole leaks over there.
Mm-hmm.
That if you try to fix things in this perceptual realm, you may get temporary joy, but eventually I feel we'll get pooped out.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a question about being a bodhisattva. You know, bodhisattva keeps coming back until everyone's. I'm saying, what if the bodhisattva is creating the need for himself to come back?
Mm.
What if the bodhisattva could create a perfection feel and intuit a world that never needed and never will need healing or enlightenment?
Hmm.
Or does the bodhisattva come into a realm where we do need to tinker with things? What is our responsibility? To tinker with what we think, or step back and let creation, nature, present the universe in its own way?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it gets definitely could get exhausting going about trying to fix everything all the time. And I wonder too, because you kind of contrast this nowness with uh like the polarity, which might be anxiety if you're looking towards the future, or maybe depression if you're looking if you're looking at the past with or regret or something like that. And I'm wondering, was there a time where you were kind of oscillating out of the now as like a normal part of your life?
When you say oscillating outside of the now or using the now as my base?
Oscillating outside of the now. So
Yes,
like, was there a time when you were, I mean, were you always in this now, or
I was, but didn't know it.
you were, yeah,
Yeah,
of course,
so
yeah, no
no, there are
choice.
times of attachment,
Yeah.
and you say addiction to outcomes, dependence upon otherness, relating to otherness, investing my total emotional, psychological balance and equilibrium into my relationship with otherness.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that they they were like roller coaster rides, and so it wasn't a dependable happiness. It
Mm.
was happiness, then there's happiness, and
Sure.
then uh, then I began hearing these messages, especially from Eastern philosophy, that suffering is due to attachment.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, wait a minute, there must be some things I can be attached to that are going to have continuous joy. But when I think of things that I'm attached to, I might come to a midway point of contentment, but continuous happiness and joy in an attachment situation, even especially if you really love something,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if if it moves outside of your field of vision, and it takes a trip to Chicago, you might have a little anxiety about,
Mm-hmm.
what if a terrorist? What if the plane go down? What if she chokes on a hickory nut?
Oh,
What if a lion leaps over the cage at the zoo and runs pell-mell through the city and grabs her?
totally.
So there's anxiety comes up,
Mm.
What if, when you're
Mm-hmm.
attached to otherness and things outside, though, the happiness, I'm so happy I got a grandchild. I'm so happy I got this new car. And you go to sleep at night. Did I park it in the right place? I don't know. These gas prices are out of sight. You
Mm.
jump in the car and you enjoy the ride. It's driving down Highway 101, and so there's ups and downs. At some point, is there a road or a path that's in constant equilibrium? And that's where the Bible, the word, or nadam, or the inner sound current, comes in. For me, it represents the sound, the frequency of the nervous system,
Mm.
cosmic nervous system, in continuous equilibrium. That's why you have nada yoga. It's the yoga that's built on finding your inner peace by contemplating the cosmic sound current.
Mm.
So that's probably one of the mainstays in the practice I do, is tuning into this sound current. And it has shown me how to sustain a place of balance and equilibrium. If I step outside of it, I can find myself getting grumpy, groggy, um, pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, why am I getting pissed off? It's because I'm attaching too much of the outcome in the physical dimension.
Mm.
And I can come back into the witness place and watch those things without being attached. Of course, I give up maybe the joy of saying, that's mine. But then I also give up the work of taking responsibility, emotional responsibility for it.
Mm.
That's one thing about possession. I said, instead of deciding what I want in life, decide what it is I'd like to take a responsibility for. What is it that I would have a lot of joy taking responsibility for? And so if you answer that correctly, you come up, oh, I wouldn't mind having 3 children. I'd take responsibility. That would be fun. Or having a Shetland pony. That would be fun. Or having a airplane pilot's license. That should be fun. I wouldn't mind taking responsibility for that. So, in wisdom, if I ask, what is it I'd like to take responsibility for? My early one was, I'd like to take a responsibility for doing what Jesus did. I guess that seemed like a hip place to be. I don't know about the cross scene. The cross. I don't know. The cross. I guess the cross, if it had to be the cross, but then I think I've been nailed to the cross already, though.
We've all,
times.
yeah.
Yeah.
We all kind of bear our own cross in our own way, I think. We have to
yes.
be who we are, right?
Yes. You do it and you say, oops, okay, that's into that chapter.
Yeah.
That you realize how committed you are to following whatever you're following. And so what falls away is the self was faking like it was following other paths.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's so good. What crosses have you borne, like willingly? They might not seem like crosses to you, right? Because
yes.
they're part of a process, but I guess.
I'll say one
right?
cross with getting nailed means having your total current portfolio shifted. It's also in the song Young at Heart. You know about Frank Sinatra, Young at Heart?
Okay, yeah.
There's one phrase in there, you can go to extremes with impossible schemes. You can laugh when your dreams fall apart at the seams. That's getting nailed to the cross. Yeah. And one time that happened is living in Park Slope, Brooklyn, working in exchange for, at a coffee house, Aquarian Coffee House, having a free room in the basement of what is now in the Park Slope food co-op. But anyhow, part of my responsibility was to help the man of this loft, who was an ex-Marine, prepare the loft for parties now and then. And on this one particular day, I had committed to being up 9 o'clock in the morning to help him prepare the loft. And about 9 o'clock, I came up to start helping him. There was a lot of work that had to be done. I got this clear signal. Go downstairs and get your auto harp and go to Central Park and play. And I was so clear. It's one of those clear signals that you know if you don't ignore it, you're punching God in the nose. Get out of here. It was so clear that I had to follow it, follow the rabbit hole up. So I went downstairs and got my gear, and as I was leaving, he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I just got a message Central Park," and I left, knowing I could feel that I was getting nailed to the cross back there. Because after I got to the Central Park playing at the zoo, outside the zoo, about 10 o'clock in the morning, hardly anybody there, and I'm saying, uh-oh, did I hear the voice right? And I'm playing for maybe a half an hour, and I'm noticing only people there are these 2 pair of feet standing there for a long time, male and female. And I opened my eyes clearly, stopped playing, and I feel that I had boo-booed, I misheard. And these 2 people came over to me. One was a gentleman, the other was a lady, and she stooped down to me and smiled and said, "You're psychic, aren't you?" And I said, uh-oh, here it comes. Here it comes. And she introduced me to the man she was with, who was a psychic, religious person who was about to launch this 12 Rays cassette album, and he needed music. And they said, my music was just right. And he hired me on the spot to come up a few days later to New England at a house where they were and record all this music. Now, back on the ground, I returned to the loft, and part of the loft had gotten completed, and my friend, or my 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 questionable friend, said, where were you? And I said, I had the voice told me, and I don't want to hear any of your muck-a-muck, and he pushed me across the loft with a force that said, I don't want to counter that.
Hmm.
And so I went downstairs and got what I could and left and never returned. And that push was getting nailed. It's just saying whatever you believe in, whatever you're following, doesn't fly here. It doesn't go over here, and it's not recognized here. It will not be honored here. It will be violently opposed here.
And so allowing that so that you can go and be where your soul is meant to be.
Yes. That taking responsibility for your actions, and I'm saying I no longer want to take responsibilities for misleading to somebody about my undercover Jesus freakness.
And it turns out that the next place for you to go is somewhere else on earth and not like ascending to heaven in that moment. So that
This
worked
is
out.
choose your path more mindfully. If you know you're committed to this, why are you getting into that relationship? If you know you're committed to sprouting to the voice, why are you committing your time and energy 9 to 5 to that job, to that kind of job? If you know you're committed to waking up, if you've seen the light and you know you're returning into the next dimension of your evolution, why are you putting all your time and energy in that direction?
Yeah, super important. I'm sure that, yeah, absolutely. And so you had an arrangement where you're kind of working there and you were a musician. Like, when did you, like, kind of rewinding back, when did you start making music, or did you do that in the church, like growing up? Was it a big part of your life?
The earliest part of music, listening to my mother, Mary Alice, humming church songs around the house when she was doing housework. It's music. So I was introduced to the open, uninhibited use of the voice. She didn't scream or nothing like that, but she had a nice voice. And then church, listening to the gospel choir. Then in our school system in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, was very up on getting children connected to musical instruments very early. I think it was the second or third grade, a little tonette, a flute kind of instrument. Around the fourth or fifth grade, I began violin. And my mother also saw that I was interested in the piano, and so she had a piano put in the house. So there I was learning piano and violin, singing in the church choir, playing in the high school and the grade school orchestra and choir, and listening to a lot of music on the radio. So performing music, I had a lot of inspiration. People like Earl Gardner, Oscar Peterson, Ahmad Jamal, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, the Beatles. All of these musical people helped me to feel as how important music is to be able to access our transverbal state of awareness, to live where we're not thinking linear thoughts. Like you said, being in the present moment. And so that musical teachings, education just blossomed. But as funny thing, I hadn't thought that I'd make it a profession because I liked it so much. I thought I wanted to become an engineer or an architect. But I was following a daydream. I thought being a chemical engineer, I could work for DuPont. I'd have a white coat and I'd have a Mercedes-Benz in the parking lot. And I'd be somebody. But somewhere around the second year of high school, somebody helped me to realize that my heart was really in music, and that being an architect or chemical engineer was not the best use of my creative journey. So I applied to Howard University and I no longer applied to MIT or Rensselaer Polytech, and I got accepted at Howard, got some scholarships, and went for music, and that validated my my ability to attract a musical scholarship.
Mm.
And my idea was to go to college for 2 years and get past the feeling of being a trespasser in the field of music. But 4 years happened. After 2 years, I did get that sense of ability to compose and da-da-da-da-da-da. But I went for 4 years at Howard. And it affirmed my devotion to creating and composing new music.
Mm.
That sound. And that, to me, turned out to be the best way I could do what Jesus did. Use sound to get people's spirit into soaring, lifting out of no longer necessary frequencies of self-awareness. Using sound to introduce people to their capacity to embrace a meditative moment, a sustained silence for 30 minutes at the end of a performance, and to really get to see the self that sees itself when it's not looking through outer lens.
Yeah. You said silence for 30 minutes after a performance. Does that happen?
Well, that has happened.
That has
Last
happened.
night it was, about 5 minutes?
It's probably about 5 minutes.
Yes.
I probably ended it by hugging you guys, but
Yes.
It probably could have gone longer.
And there's a little anxiety there because when it's happening, it's, hey, this is happening.
It's so
It
amazing.
happened in Paris, and
Yeah.
after a concert, and afterwards, people comment and says, "Never have we been in Paris in a room full of these many people, this quiet for so long."
There wasn't a sneeze. There
No.
wasn't anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so my sense is that certain kind of music can help one relax into what we call shavasana,
Yeah.
the corpse pose, where the corpse, without a linear agenda, does not interfere with the witnesses witnessing, the witness witnessing, the witness witnessing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yes, that your sense of the blue light, the flashing, the strobe light, of seeing, getting more data.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of data here. Like you call data garden.
Yeah.
This is a data garden, this moment.
Yeah.
And depending on what lens you're wearing or your aperture, you read into data, new data, old data, your data.
Yeah, and there's a lot of space between the bits, right?
Yes, lots of it. That's what they say. With the body's made up of atoms, but there's more space here than solid matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where is this all going?
This is going on.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I mean
This is
life.
Where is this going?
This life. What are we doing here?
What are we doing? We're doing this.
Yes, but why? Are there others that need to hear this, or are we just creating this whole present moment scenario because we want to feel ourselves doing something?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually brings a question up. I think I'll answer the question with a question, or raise a question that raises for me, which is, what attachments do you enjoy witnessing yourself attached to, just for fun? Or like, it's kind of like, well, we're human beings on Earth, so I can do a thing, and like I can will, or maybe it's not even willing, but I can put my energy in the direction of doing something, and that doing doesn't have to have attachment to it. I guess you don't need the attachment, but the fact that you're doing it means that you have enough. Okay, so at that point, it's either something's moving you to do it, right? So right now, then we are wind chimes with mouths and different biology.
So in your earlier vision, if you can stay present with whatever you're doing, you're not so attached to the outcome that you're enjoying the infinitude of the moment, the sense of connectedness to everything, your sense of health being identified with the wholeness of the field, and that you're not attached to winning this poker game. You're not attached to this or that coming out that particular way, because however it comes out, you'll still be in touch with your inner harmony and peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so not being attached. If you're attached to, wow, if that doesn't happen, I'm screwed. That kind of attachment is could be the roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
But you can say, if that happens, I will still be connected to my sense of longevity, and I will still have a sense of connectedness to my source of creativity. So that has happened in times when equipment has failed during a concert performance, and I could just smile at it and go another way to present this concert. Yeah. So being
Totally.
attached to a specific outcome is probably it. And then sometimes I say, am I attached, or I just appreciate it? Am I attached to that flower, or am I appreciating that flower?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's the difference for you between being attached? What's a way that you can tell?
Attached is a little anxiety.
Mm.
You know, if I'm attached to that flower, it's what if that chipmunks around here come and eat that flower and it won't be here tomorrow?
Mm.
If I'm appreciating it, I say, look at the form of that flower. Look, wow, we're on the earth together.
Mm-hmm.
And if a chipmunk wants to eat it, that chipmunk should enjoy it.
Yeah, totally. On the note of you know, you went to school for music. Did you identify as an artist like in high school?
The term artist, I think I observed myself taking responsibility for that when I was have to start signing contracts, music contracts. But did I think of an artist or a musician? You know, that's a good question, because you ask the question, when you go to get in your car, how do you talk to yourself? Who are you? Do you say, hey, yo, get the car? Hey, artist, go get the car. Hey, human being, brush your teeth. What is this? No, there's a transverbal.
Yeah.
I have a transverbal connection or association here. So if you stripped away the body and it was just left in 0 point void, I'm imagining I would be recognizing the inner sound. And because I've learned how to be comfortable with the sound, I would have something dependably familiar during the transition, during the bardo or whatever they call it, to the next dimension. That focusing on Nadam is like investing in my eternalness.
Yeah.
I call it a necessary step in smart evolution. If you got to get on board with this inner sound current, and because it's like a navigation, it's cosmic positioning signal.
Sure.
And if you're going to be a cosmic traveler, which I believe we all are, we have no beginning and no end. If we don't know it, we're going to be really pleasantly surprised when we do know it.
Yeah. Some people love that moment.
Yes.
And repeat it over and over again.
Wow. And that's why I think have outer teachers and outer gurus to help turn our focus inwards. What you're looking for is you.
Mm-hmm.
What you're looking for is right here. And those who are looking for outer teachers, the ways inward, are really looking for some event or somebody who can sculpt the proper event for internal. Something like this. You've heard of Goenka Vipassana?
Oh yeah, I've done one. Yeah.
You have?
I
think that's wonderful. Free offering on the planet, things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And people are given the opportunity to be quiet for 7 or 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
And have an expanded aha.
Oh yeah. That's actually when I came to my kind of theory on that bit rate analogy or the
That
sample rate analogy. Yeah.
I think that is very contemporarily correct. Thinking that computer or digital language is probably the right language for helping us to make the next leap forward. You got to find the language. You find the language for it, our consciousness of it will expand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the digital world is giving us a language to help access and expand in nearer dimension.
Yeah. Yeah.
Downloads, uploads,
Yeah.
delete, bulk dump. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's that part where it's it's the polarity in it is what the attachment or aversion, right? And when I was scanning my body, I noticed you're supposed to scan your body and feel. You might notice pain in some areas. You might notice like areas where there's no feeling, and then you also might notice a subtle vibration. So I was almost thinking of the pain as almost like if I'm thinking of all of everything as an oscillation of awareness, is this oscillation between like maybe attachment and aversion. It's like the pain is like the pain is like the top of the wave, like stuck on, and then the lack of feeling was like stuck off and identifying with it instead of recognizing it as change. And once I recognized it all as change, then I got that subtle vibration feeling, and I was like, oh, I'm just turning an oscillator. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm playing with an oscillator,
I
which
find
is like love.
an interesting thing to do. I find now and then as a creative yogic exercise is think of the ways that you are in pain right now, but you've transcended calling it pain.
Mm.
I could think of this situation that I'm in right now would be painful for somebody else because they wouldn't know what to do with themselves if they don't have that. Well, think of the ways that this could be called pain, but that I'm not calling it painful.
Yeah. Totally. Or when I rollerblade or something, sometimes I think about rollerblading at like 28 miles an hour, and I'm like just on one foot playing. I'm like, that would be really terrifying for somebody if if they didn't know. As everybody, you kind of create the lane for yourself through your own being, right?
Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you then is that your transpersonal view of yourself kind of maybe makes a word or an identity like artist unnecessary, or something that you didn't necessarily. It sounds almost like the path you followed was finding that inner being and the inner sense of now, and then that is what you are. You're in this constant co-creation, or you're in this constant mode of creation.
I'm
right?
saying this, yes. And also, who is not an artist?
Exactly.
Yes, because
exactly.
the art of rolling a joint. The art of avoiding rolling your own joint.
Yeah.
The art of mothering, the art of parenting.
Totally.
Sometimes you don't understand what that art is until you become a parent. Whoa, what mommy and daddy had to put up with.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that's how I think about it a lot too. It's just that we're always co-creating this moment, right? So I find that the term artist an interesting one because who isn't
if
one?
we want to accept that, yes, I believe an artist is a channel of meditative focus or meditative connection to the whatever, and their work shines a light on something that allows others to see this area more clearly, where there's emotional possibilities or emotional ability of us to enter a new realm of beauty and balance, or whatever. Artists can show us how to feel
Mm-hmm.
more deeply about something maybe we even thought we could feel about.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I can say you're doing that quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I may have told you, but you know, I met you after meditating to your music every day for about 9 months. That
The
was
same music,
it was
or what variety of music in that area?
I listened to a lot of like I had a playlist, so Unicorns in Paradise,
Yes.
uh Vision Song Suite,
Mm-hmm.
and Connecting with the Inner Healer. So I listened to those almost every day. I think I would do yoga to
Yes.
Connecting with the Inner Healer every day. And then randomly, I was contacted by someone at SUNY Purchase who was putting the show together with you and was like, "Oh, would love for you to collaborate with Laraaji." And I was like, "What? Oh, okay."
Okay.
And then I found that you had the song that I was going into your archive and found the song Cosmic Joe, which my dad's nickname was Cosmic Joe.
Really?
And I didn't know this until I started making plant music. And my parents' friends came down from the East Village. They've been living in the same like apartment since the 60s. Came down and saw the plant music stuff. And my dad's friend Norman goes up to my dad. He's like, "Hey, Cosmo, Little Joe's a Cosmic Joe too." And I was like, "Wait, you call my dad Cosmic Joe?" And my friends called me Cosmic Joe because I would just always talk about how everything's like meta and like an infinite like torsion field.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Wait, my dad's called." And then so 8 years later, I find your music and I'm meditating all the time with it. And then I see the song Cosmic Joe. And I was like, "What?" And yeah, where did that song come from? Can you tell me about that?
Well, in the mid '80s, throughout the '80s, one of my spring gigs was playing music for various consciousness conferences and around America. They would run for anywhere from 4 days to 7 days, usually on college campuses. And this one particular annual conference was called the Southeast Spiritual Conference, held on Guilford College campus in Greensboro, North Carolina. And at this conference, there were people from all over the United States and some of the world, and teachers in various subjects. And one of the teachers there was a man called Joe Tucker, Colonel Joe Tucker. He was a colonel in the Air Force colonel in the war. Talked about his flights. Anyhow, he described himself as a member of the Great White Brotherhood. And I wasn't sure what that was supposed to mean, but I think it was an esoteric occult group. But the Great White Brotherhood, and he had a Southern accent voice. And he seemed to have, after hearing my music, he was a teacher there amongst other teachers, and I was a presenter and a teacher. He would engage me and walk across the campus and talk about metaphysical things and try to explain to me that the 8th chakra is above the head and you access it. And he would, mentor me right there on campus. And I thought, wow, he's unloading some heavy data. And then I started making a connection. The Great White Brotherhood probably has some kind of like Masons. You're committed to going out and helping the world become a better place, help humanity evolve, and probably something like that. But anyhow, he, whenever he had a chance to talk, he would talk about this higher dimension and accessing it. And one summer I came to this conference and he was there. And before the conference started, there's this teachers get together in the auditorium and get to know each other. And teachers were asked to stand up and say, "What is it you're going to teach this week?" And the teachers would get up and say, "I'm so-so, I'm from Illinois, I'm going to teach curling photography, and y'all come and enjoy the class. And after about 5 teachers, I felt like, gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I got up and I just ran light language. And of course, in the moment, I'm feeling it. And I'm thinking, yo, I think I crossed the line here. But I'm feeling it. It's real for me.
Yeah.
And the only other person that got it was Joe Tucker. He just cracked up and laughed like he was on the same frequency. And so after that week, I returned home, and maybe within a week, I heard that Joe Tucker had crossed over.
Hmm.
And the song came together of Cosmic Joe met Holy Mo in locked embrace, and suddenly they were united. So that was his crossing over.
Mm.
And so there was a joke, Colonel Joe Tucker, and he talked of cosmic things.
Right on.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks for that story.
Yes, stories are good, aren't they?
They're fun as long as they're fun to access in the present moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Holy Mo there's a holy momentum, which is the sound current, vertical field momentum. It's always in place. There's a holy momentum, holy moment, which is called the instant. Then Holy Mo is we just call it a place.
Yeah. Right on.
Then there's Holy Molly.
Holy Molly. Holly Molly,
Holy Molly.
who's here.
She's transformed.
She's back there. She loves the song. Amazing.
So this is
Yeah.
super duper. You know, deep meditation, and I said anyone who gets into meditation are in for a big treat, because nothing gets us, it helps us just, we don't get bent out of shape so easily if we can feel our grounding in a transpersonal place, a place that's isn't going to get disturbed by what's going on here. If we can at least feel it, connect with it, and maybe circulate maybe an hour a day, accumulate in that place, we start balancing so we don't feel out of balance. You feel in this place and, whoa, what if that happens? I got no grounding. So through meditation, you can ground in a higher dimension, a higher foundation. And so that when you walk in this world, you say, oh, that's happening over there, but I know I'm anchored in the way. I feel the spirit. But
Totally.
if you got that much passion because you're feeling it, you're walking it, it's in your prayers, it's in your affirmations. And if it's in your language, I say the only way to arrive is through your language. You've got to have the language of where you want to be, and you've got to just de-access the language that's where you don't want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I look at it as if I was climbing a ladder that was 100 stories high, what
is that,
service?
a dream?
Just like just a situation. I look at it as like if you're climbing a ladder that is 100 stories high, why would it ever be in service for you to look down? I would not want to, just like keep going. Just keep going. This is the direction we're going. We're going this way. And yeah, we can put our,
I would look down to see if anybody with pizza is following me.
There you go.
But the idea of keep looking up or keep looking as I feel is an important language shift for us to look as. Instead of going to the future, go as the future. Instead of going toward the light, go as the light. Somehow collapse the sense of being separate from where you want to be.
Yeah.
So asness seems to work. If I think in, it's still linear, or I'm going into that, or I'm going toward it. I find when I start playing with asness, the brain starts hey, what's on here?
Yeah.
But I'm learning that it's trippy, but I feel it's crucial to smart evolution for myself.
That makes sense because, like, to me, because you're melding with where you're going. you're melding with it.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Yes. And Ramana Maharshi, what did he say?
I don't know.
He didn't say that. He said, be as you are. As, which means the ultimate place is you're going to be as everything you think there is. Asness. And so therefore I don't look outside of myself. I look as myself. And I say, a clear sense of your as. So really, so that in meditation, you drop all the titles, So when you get into that place of clear center, then you can start creating your personal future, I'm as a well sought after architect. Start thinking of not going to be a great architect. I'm going as a great architect. As this great architect, this is what I would be reading right now in my formative years. As a great architect. These are the friends I'd be hanging about. As, when I think as, and I see clearly. Yes, and wherever you go, take your as with you. So that you go where you are, I am as. So that we get to a place that there's no separation, and start living in a reduced anxiety real estate. You are it, so it can't be taken from you. And
yeah, I feel that. I love that. Moving as.
Yes, I am as. Don't go toward the party. Go as the party. Yo, I'm here as. And go trying to become a great pianist. Go as the great pianist right now. Instead of feeling away. They say the sculpture looks at a block of marble and chips away anything that isn't the elephant. So the elephant appears. So in asness, I'm chipping away everything that isn't as my being there now. That sounds trippy. But it sounds trippy to someone who is just waking up to their capacity for trippy.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the way things work already, it's not really that trippy. It's just kind of the mechanics of it. And I think as an artist for myself, like I see that because the way I create is always to just create, and then I find out what the name of the song is later.
Yes.
I find out what the album is later. I find out what the feeling or the theme is, because it's just, I don't know. Like I never, like, I'm going to write a song about a cloud today, like, I'm just like,
You're free channeling. Free channeling would come through,
sure.
and then you give a title for it later.
Yeah.
I find that that liberates me much, not knowing what I'm going to do, but tune in or get into the state or the flow state and allow, and provided that my medium is prepared. And of course, you see, in my business, they say your studio is your instrument. So you prepare the studio, loops, your piano, whatever's available at the time you turn a recorder on, and you play the studio.
Yeah.
And spontaneity, you channel it. You don't know what's going to happen. You experiment, you explore. And then 3 or 4 or 5 days later, you listen to what is, and you see what inspires you. And you say, I think I'll call it this. Many of the albums, I didn't know what I was going to be calling it until it was done. And just like you said, that you just feel and listen and guide it.
Yeah. Mentioning the instrument as the studio, I've heard that's definitely, Brian Eno talks about that a lot, coming kind of from like more art school and then going into seeing electronic music equipment and seeing that as like, oh, okay, this is a way I can sculpt sound. This is the way I can kind of compose. I guess we can talk about like Day of Radiance really quickly. Like, did Day of Radiance have a title before it was written? And were you using a lot of effects and things before working with Brian Eno, or was that something that kind of came from there?
I was using simple effects, maybe a phase shifter, simple playing through a simple amplifier in Washington Square Park. So
Yeah.
at that moment, it was just a sound of acoustic instrument blending in with electronic sound.
Cool.
So Brian took the sound and put it in the studio and put great mics on it, and then put high-end eventide effects on it subtly later. I think my phase shifter pedal maybe been too noisy at the time. Some recording situations, performance situations, I could get away with my low-end pedals. That was accepted, or either the sound engineer knew how to compensate for it. Later, high-end, traveling around the world, some of my low-end pedals could really create an issue.
Yeah.
I can get away with it in some places and others not. But anyhow, that was simple electronics on Day of Radiance and double tracking, going hammered zither for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however, and then over it with complementary tuning. Sometimes the tuning be slightly different, but would create this otherworldly harmonic reality. And double tracking, and then usually picking the best two of the three to go on the album. But we discovered that one of the tracks, meditative side, was too meditative for that studio, because the mics were allowing rumble from another part of the studio of the building there in Soho to get into the recording. 6 months later, we recorded the quiet meditative side, which again was all new, being in the moment. And so both meditations and the dance side were spontaneous channelings without a title. The title really was hovering around in the air, because my years in marriage, my wife at that time had quoted something, the Day of Radiance, and it stuck with me. Always stuck. Day of Radiance. She must have commented on my music, and so I thought that would be a good title for the album. And then the dance. At that time, I was very impressed with Rajneesh Osho and his statement that where the dancer disappears and the dance remains. And so that side, the dance side of Day of Radiance, was acknowledging that, to allow the dancer to disappear and the dance remain. And then the meditation side was named after I felt that one of my desires to leave humanity is an expanded appreciation and opportunity to explore meditation. So this was my contribution. And I deliberately left the liner notes of the album very sparse, so I didn't want to put much verbiage in there. So all of that came, the titles came afterwards, and I used minimal effects on the album at that time. I'm surprised I'm remembering your question.
Yeah, because you're here. You're in it. Well, that's cool. I love that. I love that. I love the way you create. Thank you for creating as Laraaji.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for being as Laraaji.
Ah, ha, ha.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here as Joe with you and share this. And yeah, thanks for sharing your time on this podcast and just this week. And I'm excited for I'm ready for more fun things that are I'm feeling coming our way. So
I would say, watch when you use your term how often you can substitute the word as in places, and watch the subtle anxiety or energy that happen in your body and your brain. You know, when I say I look forward to seeing you, and I say I look asward seeing you.
Ooh.
And I just noticed how awkward it feels to some other way of thinking, but how openly it's inviting me to be in present time.
Yeah. That's great. I love that because many times I use the I use the conventional language, or I'll use my own modification of the conventional language, that but there's still more openness. There's I think there's infinite openness
Yeah.
in the in the asness, and just tweaking and play. There's a lot of play available, which is fun.
I would choose to close with just a few seconds of a tone.
Yes, let's do that.
So it is.
Thank you, Laraaji. So it is.